X minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
It's the Rocket Hour. Y'all are now tuned in. Time to hit the pick four that you'd love to win. If your money's coming slow, step on the faster track with your host, Ricky Pasternak. Let's go.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Rocket Hour. As we're doing this, I've definitely completely recovered from COVID, which is nice. No symptoms. I'm really happy I don't have to go outside. I forgot which horse it was, but we were contemplating that I would have to go outside. I think it was Jungle Runner. Luckily, Jungle Runner's still trying to finish that race at Oaklawn, I believe, on Friday. Still hasn't crossed the wire yet. So it's nice that I don't have to do that. Mr. Halterman, how are you doing this morning? Oklahoma sweatshirt on and everything. You're looking bright, strong, ready to go.
Yeah, man, I got fresh haircut for the show, just for you today, Ricky. I got that cut. So yeah, man, I'm ready. I'm excited. Another week. And we've done Monday shows the last couple of weeks and we didn't have one. So it's like I'm refreshed. Like I feel really good about the week coming up, man. I'm pumped for the show today.
Yeah, it's funny. We were just talking about qualifiers and all these different tournaments you're in. It's funny. It's like for me on a Wednesday, I'm just trying to get the show together, all the stuff situation, and you're full flowing. You got head-to-head tournaments. You got qualifiers. Obviously, We'll be rooting for you. I'm sure if you do well, you'll tweet that out, and we'll kind of see what's going on throughout your Wednesday. We introduced a new segment last week, and it was called Fill in the Blank, and it's actually funny. It's fill in the blank with a colon and then nothing. And the reason for that is, folks, Aaron can see what I do in the lead up to this, and I can see what he does. So the reason I did that is because I didn't want to show him any of the topics. So I have 4 things. 3 we're definitely going to touch on. Maybe we'll get into the 4th. The first is, Aaron, these are all for you, and I'll touch on it if I feel like you missed something or I want to touch on something. Aaron, fill in the blank. Your father's article, Mike Halterman's article about Gulfstream Park was what?
I think it was a success is how I would say it. I'm biased, so I wasn't going to comment on it, on my thoughts on it, because I'm obviously going to think it's good because it's my dad. But a lot of positive reviews on it. So yeah, he was really pumped. He texted me. He's like, "Wow, I can't believe there's pictures on it." So I said that's why we have magic. So yeah, no, I think it was a success.
Yeah, I'm able to pull it up right here, and this is what it looks like. It's 10 reasons why I miss Oaklawn. I'm not going to get into the whole thing, and he kind of just goes, and there you could see Mike Halterman published a couple days ago. I'm sure Magic touched it up and made it look really, really nice. I got to read it. We talked about it for a little bit. Obviously, all these pictures, and I'm scrolling quick. So obviously, this is not just a brand thing, but it's a really good article, and it really makes you kind of realize what we're missing when we're not at the track. Obviously, if you've been to the track, honestly, lucky for you, you've been able to do so. I haven't in quite a long time. So it's a really, really makes you feel good. And if you've been to any track that gets a lot of people, you'll know exactly what this article is talking about, and it'll hit home. So that was a feel-good moment for you. I wanted to start off the week strong. I know you're biased. But again, I do think it's a really good article. I completely agree. And it just makes me feel warm inside. And that's what we're trying to do. Fill in the blank. The Holy Bull Stakes or the Robert B. Lewis Stakes is going to tell us more about the Kentucky Derby picture this year. Fill in the blank.
No, I don't. I mean, I maybe it tells us some horses not to bet for the Kentucky Derby as far as a win candidate goes. I would say that.
No, and that's fair. And real quick, I'm going to pull both of them up for you, and then we'll kind of just talk about it real quick. In the Holy Bull, we kind of saw Greatest Honor pull away from Prime Factor. The Buzz horse was Prime Factor. He didn't show up. Even money, I believe, on Prime Factor 1.1, almost 6-5. Just he wasn't horrible, but not exactly what we were expecting. And a lot of people, I think, had Prime Factor probably singled on tickets or a lot of those situations. So I would push back and say I'd like to see how Greatest Honor does moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
I do agree with you, and right now I'll pull up the other race for everyone to see. I would push back and say I think Greatest Honor. I'm a little intrigued and see how he does, and this is the Robert B. Lewis. We talked about Roman Centurion, I think on Friday, because this was the horse that really hadn't run against stakes horses before. He was kind of the new shooter, and at least for us, and Aaron pushed back. It's always one of those things where it's like we want to see how the new horses do, how the up-and-comers, the trending horses. And Roman Centurion ran really, really well. Maybe he's a horse that could take another step moving forward.
Yeah, I kind of liked Medina Spirit's like heart and determination, and whatever you might want to call it, that kind of was able to hold on. I thought it spoke a lot about him, but I also think it speaks a little bit about the two horses that were trying to get past him and never could. You have to think a horse with a solid turn of foot wins that race, and so Roman Centurion, even though he finished second in the Robert B. Lewis, nobody claimed him in our fantasy league. So that was very interesting to me, that everybody kind of thought, well, that horse probably should have gotten past Medina Spirit. Same with Hot Rod Charlie. So I took that. I didn't take much away from this one. I would agree with you. I thought Greatest Honor, visually impressive. And the biggest thing about Greatest Honor is he's got Shug on his side, and Shug knows how to progress a horse through the series, much like he did with Orb. This horse kind of reminds me a lot of Orb. So Greatest Honor, definitely the most upside out of everybody that was running on Saturday. Yeah,
I completely agree. Well, when you have Shug, you're probably going to get a more patient type of progression as opposed to Tough Luck Bob or someone like that, who's really going to try to ramp those horses up in a 4-month window, 3 to 4 month window, like from now until Derby time, or from January until Derby time, whatever the case may be. Shug is really going to let the horse progress. So we're talking potentially from like last summer or last fall, you're going to probably get more of that 7 to 9 month window. So I completely agree. His best horse could be Greatest Honor at this point in terms of the Derby trail. You'll probably start to see even better potentially moving forward right in that time for May, as opposed to a horse like Bezos, who maybe we'll talk about later in the week, who hasn't even hit the track yet. So that's a really good point on Shug. There's another point that I wanted, 2 more real quick. Mm-hmm. I said it was good you're wearing your Oklahoma sweatshirt. It's not Oklahoma football, but the big news yesterday, the EA Sports college football game will be back. Fill in the blank. How will you react when the game officially comes out? You will do what?
Oh, I will buy it. And I think I'm gonna have to buy a new console, because I think it's like Next Generation or something is what they're having on. I don't have that. So yeah, I will buy the game and the Listen, I played that game for hours and hours and hours. I had like NCAA 99. I mean, Ricky wasn't even born when I was playing this game. I still have NCAA 14, which was the last one that came out. My system that I had to use or to play it on it finally gave out, and I haven't went and got another one. But I'm freaking excited. Like, this was the best. This will be like Christmas morning when this game finally comes out.
Yeah, it's funny. I was listening to I believe SportsCenter yesterday, and the hype around this game for a game that hasn't existed since I think 2014 is incredible. Excuse me. Sometimes it's one of those things where it's like you don't realize what you had until it's gone. And I think this is one of those situations.
Yeah.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, because of the rules in terms of, I don't know all the details, but in terms the rules with the player's likeness, image, all that stuff, they should be getting paid. I think that will be situated. So, for example, you might actually have a Spencer Rattler. Maybe it won't be Rattler probably at that time, but you will have S. Rattler or Rattler with his number and a lookalike when the game comes around. I think that'll be amazing. Who knows? It's probably a 14-year-old kid that we've never heard of at this point, or a 15-year-old kid. But nonetheless, it should be a lot of fun, and I will be getting the game as well. The final thing I wanted to touch on is something that happened yesterday in the horse racing world. And I shouldn't say that. It's more so about what this poll kind of created. Mm-hmm. I've never done a poll that generated something like this before. And I'll leave it to you as I'll scroll the results and I'll talk about it. But your first initial thoughts. The poll question that I posed yesterday was.
I think it was awesome. You got 792 votes on it. That's really good. No surprise to me that Saratoga won. My thing would be you should have put Oaklawn on there because that would have been my vote. But I love it, and I think it kind of speaks the same thing as my dad's article of people are just they want to get back to the track and they have such affection for a certain track. And for me, it would be Oaklawn because that's where I cut my teeth in the game, so to speak. That's where I learned the game. And so, yeah, but it was great to see in a lot of comments underneath too that you said you're going to scroll. A lot of people chiming in with their favorite track as well.
Yeah. So real quick, I'll talk about I'll talk about the comments in a minute. We'll go through those really quick if people didn't get a chance to listen to. I only have 1,570 followers. So for people that don't follow me to somehow get involved in this poll, I thought was great. 792 is fantastic. Again, it just kind of reminds you of people that want to be at the track, no matter what racing's going on. I put Saratoga, Keeneland, Del Mar there, and I'll get to some of the comments here. Santa Anita was thrown around a lot. Here's a fairgrounds. No Turf Paradise love. I promise you, Turf Paradise was never going to make it. There were Oaklawn, but there were a few that were international. There's an Ascot that has a great meet. I think it's about 2 weeks a year. That was fantastic. Randwick in Australia, Flemington, and it's not even close. Belmont, I would push back and say Belmont's not one of the better ones, except for Belmont Day. Monmouth, and they put at Monmouth. Arlington Park, Del Mar, which was on there. Ellis Park. A few Gulfstreams because it's open. It was really great, and obviously there was Oaklawn and Cheltenham. Never thought that would have made the list. And so it was really, and I'll go back up a few different other ones, but it was really, really nice to see people get involved. Again, a lot of votes, so I really, really appreciate that, and it kind of just got me at least thinking of some of the nostalgia. That had not having been to the track, especially Saratoga. I went to Monmouth last year and it just wasn't the same. It was nice to be there. It was. It's just not the same sort of feeling that you get when you wake up and you're walking to the track. It's Saratoga. It's just one of those things that's incredible. So again, really, really quick, I want to thank you guys for participating in that. I think I'm going to do a poll every Tuesday. So if anyone wants a topic, we're going to call it Twitter Tuesday. They're not going to be as exciting as that. I promise you, because I can't find 52 topics horse racing wise. Maybe there won't be horse racing wise, or it will be a little different, but I want to see people interact and throw their comments. It was really, really cool to see. Let's get to the reason why we're here. And it's horse racing, right? So let's get to it. We'll start with race 7, like we always do. This was an interesting sequence, to say the least. Sorry, you guys are not seeing number 8. There weren't really too many scratches. We'll get to those, obviously. This is claiming $16,000 for fillies and mares, 4-year-olds and upward, going 1 mile and a 16th on the turf. We're starting with race 7, 7 through 10, as we always do. It's a little bit later of a post time, just so everyone knows. I think race 7 should go off around at 4:15 today, so keep that in mind. Aaron, I'll kind of throw it to you first. What did you think of this race, and how did you think of this field, or what were your initial thoughts when going through it?
Well, it's really funny, to be completely honest with you and everybody listening. I had to go quick to the banner to look what I actually decided to do on this race, because I typed in 4 or 5 different things. This is a bad race for me to start with, because it was a lot of confusion. It was a lot of back and forth on what to do. I ended up settling on a $5 win wager to kick this thing off on number 5, Blossom Bow. And this is more of a pick because I just don't trust a lot of the shorter prices in here. And I just wanted to take a little bit of a long shot. I didn't want to use hardly any of my bankroll on this race. So I just did a $5 win wager on the 5. This filly, her best races do come on the turf. So I like that. Stretches out in distance a little bit from some of her other turf races that have all come at 1 mile. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I just think when you look when you look at the other horses in this race, you can just poke holes through so many of them. Sure, you can poke holes through the 5 as well, but at least you're going to get value on the 5. So I just was going to throw a small win wager there. The horse I did put in second is the favorite, the number 2 horse, Codrington. But, man, this horse gets way behind. Dropping down in class, that's good, but probably needs to, right? I mean, going to need some pace, and I don't see a ton of it here. I just didn't love the horse. I think this is a horse definitely you need to use in exotics, but I just couldn't get a strong opinion one way or another on that horse. So those were my top 2. I'm very excited to kick it to you now to let you talk about a couple, because this, like I said, I really hated this race.
So this is the classic. Do you go with the class droppers? Do you go with some early speed? I think there are a lot of ways you can go. I'll talk about Codrington real quick. I agree Codrington needs to drop in class because her efforts, I should say, haven't been all that good. But based on the way the time form figures have come back, I just think to not include her is a little naive to me. I don't know if she's necessarily a win candidate for you in terms of I would place a win bet. I shouldn't say win candidate, but a win bet. You're going to get a short price, and her horses haven't been great. The 2 horses I wanted to talk about, the 4, Lily's Heat, she has been pretty awful. But what I will say is she probably will be on the lead. This is a type of race that into the first turn, if you're on the lead, you do have a chance to win, because I don't see any runners in here that are strong closers, and I don't see anyone else who's really going to get to the lead. The 3 Oblio's, I think I'm saying that right, Oblio's Wish was kind of in the same boat. But to be honest, I don't know if she's any better than Lily's Heat. The one thing you would point to is what, Carlos David. That's probably the reason where you're getting the 4-1, because they came out of the same race last time out. They pretty much ran side by side towards the end, at least. At least for the 4, Lily's Heat, she was on the lead. Oblio's Wish, I don't really know what she did in that race to give me anything that 4-1 would be encouraging. So I prefer the 4 there. That was one of the horses. The other one was the 8, Something Magical. I think this is just another class dropper. I am interested in seeing her go long, because there are some races where she's been forwardly placed. I'll be honest. I don't know anything about Anthony Pecoraro. I think that's his last name. Sure. I don't know anything about him. I do know that he has 1 second, so that's making me a little bit scared. And Jesus Rios, I'll be honest, he's not great, but I don't think his stock is all that great. I think this is a horse that I would want, and this is, I think, a horse that might sit right behind a horse like Oblio's Wish or Lily's Heat. So that's why I went. I went 2, 4, 8. I didn't want to include the 7, 9 Muse Treasure, and I'll throw it to you about her, the 7 horse, for a minute. I just thought 5-2 is too close to Codrington at 2-1 on the morning line, and you shouldn't always go on morning lines, but this looks like a race that if you want to play favorites and play a lot of them, you're just not going to be rewarded with handicapping. I think this race is pretty weak.
Yeah, I mean, 9 Muse Treasure, this was a filly that I put in the top 4, just because, first time turf in a long time last time out, and wasn't awful, but wasn't great either. Gets Luis Saez today. I mean, Paco Lopez, though, rode last time, so it's not like a huge upgrade, really, but I would rather have Saez than Paco. So I think there are some signs that the 7's got a shot, but again, you kind of talked about, okay, here's a shorter price, and it's like, God, that horse got beat by 6. It's not that good. And that's why I kept landing on the 5 and saying, well, again, the 5 can probably get a pretty decent trip, has early speed, probably going to sit just off the 4, and probably should get every bit of 8-1. And it's just like, well, I just think that's just a race to take a swing on, and hopefully, the horse runs well. I've never really remember us handicapping a race like this on the show where every class dropper is just horrible. Like, it's like, a lot of times we'll latch on to a class dropper or two. The ones that are dropping are just bad. I mean, they need to be dropping, So yeah, I hated this race all the way around. I really have no idea. I do think the 4 Lily's Heat, if you can get 10-1, it's probably worth it just because of the speed angle, like you mentioned it, that the horse should be in front, and speed on the turf at Gulfstream, very dangerous. But, this horse has been in front the last 2 times on the turf at Gulfstream and got her ass beat and wasn't even close. So there's not a whole lot of saying, okay, I'm really confident in this horse. The horse was ahead, 2 back, 9th, beaten 10. The horse was ahead last time out, 3rd, beaten 8 1/4. I mean, so we'll just see what happens. This is one of the worst races at Gulfstream maybe I've ever seen, to be completely honest.
I do agree. We've seen claiming 6,250 better than this. So I will agree, usually on the dirt. What I will say about Lily's Heat real quick, the last time was the first half was 46-1, so 46.37. I don't care who you are on the turf. Good luck trying to hold on to that, and especially at this level. So I'm not making an excuse for this horse because this horse faded pretty badly. But I'll be honest, for a horse like Oblio's Wish, who was sitting off the pace, to not be able to close into that, I think is more detrimental than the 4 Lily's Heat, who was trying to set the pace at that. Now, granted, I don't remember. I watched the replay of this race a few days ago. Carlos Lugo there was pace there. I don't remember correctly. Maybe you could enlighten me. I don't think he just went out there and said, I'm going to go as fast as I can, as often as I can. I think she was pressured and it heated it up. Heated the pace up, excuse me. I just want to see her back in the spot. If she can run anything, maybe 47-3, 47-4, just watch out for her. I do still think Codrington is the horse to beat. Again, the group of 6, I'm going to go all the way back to June 6th with her. Claiming 30,000 level. I would say one of the weaker fields that she's faced in the group of 6. Mm-hmm. She did finish 3rd by 3/4. I don't know. I agree with you. Landing on a class dropper is risky, but that is the one that I landed on. This race is horrible. So if you feel like saving your money and maybe playing a pick 3 or something like that, then go for it. Race 8, allowance for state-bred fillies, 3-year-olds that have not won a race other than going 5.5 furlongs on the dirt. I'll start here. There is a scratch. It is the 3 Mon Petit Chou. I believe I said that properly. And I think she was going to take money at 9-2. She had a nice race last time out. I went with our Adios Jersey. I'll be honest. I love Georgina Baxter. I don't think she really knew what she had in this horse last time out. I'll be completely honest with you. That race, now she did go off at 4-5, but any horse that wins by 12 3/4 at a level like that usually means the horse was misplaced properly. That's just my opinion. I haven't heard anything about it. You won't at this level. But I do want to throw it to you because that was the first thing that I thought of. Any horse, again, that wins by that much and literally started out winning by 2 lengths, to go gate to wire and do it like that meant she probably should have been running at the maiden special weight level. I have a few other horses that I use, but was that kind of the same thing that you went on? I see you have a nice sizable win bet on that horse on the filly. Is that kind of what you thought when you were thinking at this race at the beginning?
Yeah. So first of all, I usually don't like to take a horse coming out of the maiden claiming ranks right to an allowance, but there's a couple of factors that make it very viable to do that today. So the $20 win wager on the 9 our Adios Jersey will be my bet here. Two big factors. Number one, jumping from a maiden claimer open to a Florida bred allowance. I think that's one factor to come in there. It's like it's a class jump, but it's not huge. And especially when you look at speed figures, it's like, well, this is the fastest horse in the race. And the other thing is, like you mentioned at the beginning of the when you were talking about the race and this horse, won by 12 3/4. Didn't win a maiden claimer by a couple lengths. Like just was in her own little race. So yeah, I'm going to bet her right back here. The biggest reason is when you look at the setup of this race, who's going to go with the 9? I didn't see anybody. So
yeah,
I mean, right? Like I think this horse is going to get an easy lead going 5.5 here. And usually at these Gulfstream races, you see some other speed signed on with these sprints. I don't see it here. I think the 9 gets an easy lead and takes him gate to wire. And yeah, I went from my weakest opinion, race 7, to the strongest opinion here in race 8 with the 9 horse. I'll go ahead and talk about a couple other ones, though, just in case you guys want to play exactas or tries in this race, don't want to bet the win on what will probably be a short price, which is understandable. I thought Include the Beast was kind of interesting. I think it's interesting. This horse has won 2 races in a row, claimed last time out, and to the Navarro barn, not Jorge Navarro, mind you, but still probably a little bit of a barn upgrade, I would say. Luis Saez jumps aboard. We could see some improvement from this horse. And I think this is the horse that could be sitting second, third, and maybe get the first jump on the 9 if the 9 starts to back up. Similar to what we saw last week when Brasstown, remember Brasstown had that lead and all of a sudden just quit. Well, if that happens with the 9, the 2 could be the first one to pick up the pieces. So I like the 2. And then the other logical is the 4, number 4, Demo Wonder. This horse is just, she's been around, right? Like she's always around. She's been in tough maidens for Florida breds. Finally got the maiden broke last time out. Ran at this level last time. Only beaten 4 3/4. I mean, she could come back second time against winners and really improve. And in my opinion, gets a massive jockey upgrade today to Irad Ortiz Jr. So I like the 4 a little bit too. But my strongest opinion definitely on the 9 in this spot.
So real quick on a few points. The first real quick about Irad and Rohan Crichton. They're teaming up to win at 50%, 4 of 8 this year. So I think that's a horse that's a must-use off of that. Obviously, she makes sense otherwise, but I think that's just a duo you don't want to leave off. That's point 1. Mm-hmm. Point 2, I do want to push back on the speed angle. I do agree the 9, our Adios jersey, is quick. Absolutely will be on the lead. I see the 5, Foolish Heart, going. I see the 4, Demo Wonder, at least be close. I think there's going to be enough pace pressure that might open it up for, I don't want to even say a closer, because if they go really, really quick, we've seen it before that if you're 8 lengths back, you're too far back. I do like the 4, Demo Wonder. I'm going to throw a horse at you. Now, don't hate me. The 8, Battle Cry. The reason I like Battle Cry is because I think she has the ability to sit, let's say, 5 lengths off, 4 lengths off, whatever you want to say, and just pass tired horses. I don't believe she's better than our Adios jersey, the 9. I don't believe she's better than the 4, Demo Wonder. I don't believe she's better than Include the Beast. But this race just seems to set up perfectly for her. It's one of those situations where at 8-1, I don't think she's that much worse than a horse like the 4, Demo Wonder, when the race, I think, has a potential to break down. Could this be a favorite laden race with our Adios jersey just going gate to wire? Sure. Because, like, to your point before, I completely agree. An open maiden claiming 35 to a state bred allowance is not a big jump at all. I completely agree there. I just think that there are going to be a lot of horses, a lot of fillies that really don't want to be that far back, and it might force our Adios jersey to have to look someone in the eye early on and see what happens. Did you take a look at Battle Cry at all at 8-1 on the morning line, or are you just going to – obviously you played a win bet, so that's maybe not the best question. But did you at least consider that fact where there might actually be more pace than you originally anticipated?
Yeah, I think this is a classic example of we are looking at the pace and we've projected 2 different things. So no, I did not even really think about the 8 much because I just think the 8 will be too far behind. So if I looked for, okay, who's the alternative to the 9, I looked at that like you your second bracket. The horses in the second group that you've talked about with the Pegasus Day and how you got to some of those horses. I need to upset. If somebody's going to upset the 9, I think it's got to come out of that second group, not the third tier. And I think Battle Cry is going to be more on that third tier. So no, I didn't really look at that horse. This is one, though, if you're going to play a trifecta, I think this one makes sense because this is definitely a clunk up for second, third type of candidate, right? But I think you're right. For this horse to win, you're going to need to see a little bit of a pace meltdown. And I just don't see that happening. I don't think the 5 has enough natural speed to just naturally go out and press the 9. And that's why I just think this 9 could get lonely out there on the lead. Or if somebody tries to go, they're going to have to be ridden pretty hard to keep up.
So I'm happy I was able to rub off on you in terms of tier A, B, and C. I do appreciate. I shouldn't say I appreciate that because I was not the one to come up with that. I adopted that from my dad as well. He doesn't actually draw it out. I do, but that's okay. I do agree. I almost didn't put anyone in tier B. Honestly, I almost put like tier A or tier C. So I just kind of thought Battle Cry was the best of the tier C horses. It's fair because I see this picking up pace wise and you don't. So what we could both be right with the 9 because I did put our Adios jersey above the rest. I personally, I'm hoping it does melt down, but I do agree that if we 5-2 is a nice price for a win bet. I hope she does not get hammered. That's my fear. If she goes off at 6-5, I'll throw this to you real quick before we move on. What obviously you placed a win bet and we don't change it. What price would you consider not placing a win bet? Is 7-5 too short? Is even money too short? What in your mind did you say, you know what? I would consider going somewhere else or maybe switching up the bet.
Yeah, if she goes below even money, I'm not really interested in it after that. But yeah, I would take 7-5, 6-5, something like that. I think that's more of her true odds and what we can expect. And it's a great question because I don't really want to throw out a horse ever and it's 2-5 to post. And sometimes it's unavoidable. Sometimes you can't predict it. I don't think this is one of those situations where she's going to be below even money. I just don't think that's going to happen. But I would take 7-5 right now. I 100% would.
The reason I agree with you about going below even money real quick as we wrap up, there are horses that are just dropping. If she was facing runners that are making a lateral move, as we like to say, where they're just going from race A to race B and it's the same condition, I would agree. The 4 is the only one that I like that's making a move here. Like Battle Cry has 2 stakes races that you could look at. The 7, who we don't like, we didn't talk about, 2 AOC races. So I think there are enough class droppers that people will want to take a shot. And so I agree. I think 7-5 is probably about right. I wouldn't fight you over 6-5. I don't know. I think this is a nice field. I will say this is a nice state bred allowance race, and we'll see if she's the real deal. She might be in even better next time out if she can take down this field. Moving on to the back half of this pick 4 sequence, race 9, allowance optional claiming $62,500 for fillies and mares, 4-year-olds and upward, going 7 furlongs on the dirt. I'll throw it to you here. I thought this was another good race. And the reason I want to throw it to you specifically, not only because that's the order we're going in, because I had no idea where to go. Hopefully you can help me narrow down this field a little bit. This is a tough field of 8.
Well, this is the race of the day, and this is a race that you could almost see happening at Gulfstream on a Saturday, right? Like this is an allowance race that's going to have some horses that are jumping into stakes next time out, and has several horses that have been in stakes. And as far as the number 4 Hopeful Growth goes, it's been in the biggest stakes for her crop last time out, or last year in the Kentucky Oaks. I mean, and then also the Black Eyed Susan, and almost won the Black Eyed Susan. So this is a really nice horse. So I'll talk about number 4 Hopeful Growth first because this is my top choice. I think the cut back to 7 furlongs is actually going to be pretty decent for this horse because you look all the way back towards middle of last year in May, 7 furlong race at Tampa, and obviously an allowance race at Tampa, you're probably going to win if you're a good horse like she is, but won by 3 3/4. And I thought it was one of her stronger efforts visually. I mean, she may have run speed figures a little bit bigger as she progressed through the year, but that also could be because she was a 3-year-old just kind of getting a little better and taking steps up from a talent perspective. So anyway, I think the 7 furlongs is going to hit her pretty good. I think she's got enough early speed to kind of be in the race and be where you need to be at Gulfstream. So I put Hopeful Growth on top. The reason why I didn't play a win wager and went with the $5 exacta, I'm very intrigued in the number 8 Finding Fame for Shug McGahee. I think this horse could be your typical Shug progression as they get older. And like you said earlier, we're talking about Greatest Honor, how Shug is so patient with these horses. This is something we could see right here, right? Where he's got this horse ready to go. You look at speed figures and you say, well, this horse is going to have to take a step up. But I think this horse is going to take a step up. So Finding Fame was my second choice. You know, last year broke her maiden here at 6.5 furlongs, stretched out to a mile, won again, and then an allowance at Belmont going 6.5 furlongs, second, beaten by a half length, but on her way, pretty nice horse that beat her. I think she's going to run a much improved race, and I think the biggest sign with these Shug horses when they come off layoffs is, does he have Jose Ortiz aboard? They don't ride together just a ton, but they do a lot because Shug has nice horses. Ortiz wants to be on them. But when Ortiz jumps on a Shug horse, it's usually a good sign that this horse is ready to run a good race. So the 4 and the 8 in an exacta box, that's my play. That's my top 2. There's a ton of other horses to talk about here, Ricky, so I'll kick it to you now for some of yours.
I wish you hadn't thrown it to me, and the reason is because I still am confused. I did put Hopeful Growth on top. I'll be honest, I don't really know why she shows up here. And that's the part that concerns me, right? So you have 4 stakes races, some of the best stakes races in the country for fillies, and they've gotten progressively better. The Delaware Oaks was horrible, but then comes back and wins the Monmouth Oaks. There wasn't a ton there. She actually got the better Project Whiskey that time around. The Kentucky Oaks, all right, that's not her fault. You're facing She Dares the Devil, Swiss Skydiver, and Gamine. Good luck beating that group. And then she comes to the Black Eyed Susan and does well. Okay, so I don't know if this is a spot, and I'll push back. I don't know if this is a spot, as I'm thinking this through, that this is just a win spot, or if this is a spot where they're going to try to get her back again, because she hasn't run since October. So we're talking, what, a 4-month layoff. She obviously is a must-use. And I think, again, you know, I use this word a lot. You're naive to not use her. I would just be very, very careful with a single or going short, because this looks like one of those situations where they're just trying to get a start back into her before they ramp her up again for her 4-year-old season here in 2021. So I agree with Hopeful Growth. I have nothing to say bad about Finding Fame, except for we're going to find out about the layoff. That's a concern. You talked about that. If she can run well off the layoff, then she's going to be good. There are a few other horses. I went deep. I went 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, because I'll be honest, I had no idea where to go. I'll be the first one to admit I was really, really not clueless. I had a lot of different directions. I want to push back and you talk about the 6, Lake Avenue. I think that race would come with Jeweled Princess, who I think we just saw. She comes out of a race that's probably a tougher AOC 62-500 level. So similar condition here. Comes out of a race that's going to come back much better. I did Casual is also a nice filly as well. I think that's a really, really good race. The way I think you texted me the other day, maybe it was last week or over the weekend, how great is Junior Alvarado riding? Mm-hmm. Unbelievable. I would say at this point, outside of Irad Ortiz, because that might be a given, he's probably been the second best jockey in the last couple weeks at Gulfstream, and I don't really think it's close, to be honest. He was in the single-digit percentage-wise when we first started the show, about 5-6%. There's no surprise that as Bill Mott gotten hotter, so is he. Again, this goes back to you can only ride what you're on top of. Again, let's keep this PG. In terms of horses, the stock has gotten better and they've been in form. Hence, Junior Alvarado's numbers are getting better. I don't know. That's a horse to me, a filly that I want. Obviously, can handle the distance by tap, she's proven that before. She has a win at this distance. The other one, and 7 furlongs might be a little bit short, but she did break her maiden back in 2019 at this distance. The other one I want to throw out is Sonar, the 7, from the mere fact that I think horses stretching out are always interesting. And what I mean by that, this is a distance that I don't think will be too challenging for her. Because when you go from 6 furlongs to a mile, that's where I get a little scared. I think she has 6.5. She has 6 in a group of 6 that I like to really focus in on. Luis Saez is really aggressive, and I think if he can get her to the front, he could slow it down. We've talked about this before. One of my favorite things to talk about is, does the 7 furlong race heat up? Is it more like a sprint, or is it more like that mile route-ish type of race? I see it that way. In this particular instance, I want to throw it back to you in terms of a pace angle. Do you see it more so as you think it might heat up, which I don't see particularly, or do you think it might be a little bit slower and we might see something like a 23-4, 24 flat, 24-1? If you had to guess off the top of your head, which way do you think you see it going?
I think we're going to see a situation when there's a few horses near or on the lead, but they're not really going that fast. So you may get a slower fraction where a horse or two are still being pressed as far as company with them. But no, I don't think it's going to be just super fast in here. I do think the 7 has got a shot to get out to that lead. Another horse that I had a tough time with, and I ended up throwing in of the top 4 is the 2 Velvet Crush. And you didn't touch on this horse, but you have her as well. Gosh, it really seems like getting back to 7 furlongs should be good for this horse. Last time the horse was at 7 furlongs was the maiden win here at Gulfstream last year by 8.25. This is a wildly inconsistent racehorse, right? But for the first time today, jumps to the Chad Brown barn. Now, Chad Brown's he's been a little quiet this year, no question about it, but he's lost a lot of horses, and so he's kind of retooling the barn. I think this is one that he could do pretty well with, and that's no offense to Brissett, because he did get this horse to win a few races, but I think Chad might be able to move this horse up a little bit. I thought she was interesting as well, and she's another one. She's so spotty with her form. We could see her on the lead. We can see her 4th and 5th. It's really hard to kind of guess where she's going to be, but I do think she's another one that's going to be forwardly placed. I want to round back real quick to the 6 Lake Avenue. This horse, to me, it's now or never almost for her. If you remember back when she was a 2-year-old, she looked like she was going to be the next big thing. Like this, going into the 3-year-old season, we kind of thought this could be a Kentucky Oaks contender for sure. So much so that she was the favorite for her first, prep race in March at Aqueduct at 4-5, ran 4th, beaten 9. Still decent 5-1 in the Gulfstream Park Oaks, and didn't run horrible, was still beaten by 3.25. Her last 2 efforts have just been trash. And yes, the race last time out at Churchill Downs was a tough race, but still, she was never really a factor to win there at any point. We got to see her today. I don't blame you. I think it's a defensive use. I don't blame you for using her. We got to see what she can actually do today. I'm really curious, because at one time this horse had a lot of hype, but we haven't seen a good race from her in a long time.
Before I shouldn't say this, before I completely agree with what you just said, I do want to put the horses that I ranked in this order. So I went with 4, 7, 6, 2, and the 8. And that doesn't necessarily mean I'm ranking them in that way. That's more so how I could potentially see this race finishing. So I'm not ranking. There's a difference when people do a consensus or something like that. It's some people will take it as, I see this is the 4 best horses, and then they'll finish 1 through 5. And I'm very inconsistent with that. Sometimes it goes either way. That's the way I see this race finishing. And the reason I did that is because I really couldn't separate them. Like I think Finding Fame, who I put in the 5th spot, could easily be first. Like I think it's that razor thin. I do agree with you about Lake Avenue, because in 2019, she was the talk of the town. Now, granted, the talk of the town in New York always has an asterisk, because we don't always know how great the runners are. Tis the law, not applicable. But when we talk about her, she just hasn't looked the same. And her race against Swiss Skydiver in the Gulfstream Park Oaks wasn't bad, like you said. I mean, to finish within 5 lengths of a horse like that is incredible. Swiss Skydiver, one of the best horses in 2020, regardless of age, distance, surface, whatever you want. Swiss Skydiver is that good. Excuse me. One of the horses that we didn't really talk about, again, you touched on Velvet Crush a touch. The only thing I wanted to add about Velvet Crush, she doesn't belong on the turf. She's not as good as Selflessly at all. Not as good as Sweet Melania. And the other one was against the Coaching Club American Oaks. That was against Paris Lights and Crystal Ball. I don't think she was as good there either. At a race similar, she won by 3/4. Now, we haven't seen her since the summer. I don't know what that means. It can't be a great thing. I'll be the first to admit it. We'll see. Real quick before we move on, are there any horses that we haven't touched on? It seems like we touched on a bunch. The only ones we haven't touched on are the 1, Crumbun, the 3, Namazar, and the 5, Dance Dora. Or were you interested in any of those 3?
No, I really wasn't. I think, this is just an allowance that came back really, really tough. And I don't really think the 3 horses you mentioned are horrible, but I don't think they're right for this race. I think they're really going to have to jump up and run a bigger race than what we've seen from them to have much of a shot here. I think we covered the ones you need to use. I think the 5 you used are definitely, if anybody outside of that wins, I will be really shocked.
I agree. I'll be honest, the difference between the 5, Dance Dora, and the 7, Sonar, I thought that was close. If you're looking from a speed angle, the 5, I guess, will be out there as well. I just prefer the 7 with Luis Saez, and that would be Sonar. Let's move on to the last race. This is not a maiden claiming, so I was very excited about that. This is maiden special weight for Florida bred, for state bred. 3-year-old fillies going about 7.5 furlongs on the turf. I will never understand about 7.5 furlongs, but no one's ever going to give me an answer. That's fine. Okay, just make it a mile or a mile 16. But okay, fine. About 7.5 furlongs. I didn't think using anyone past 2 horses in this field was necessary. I am all in on Simply the Best. I think she is simply the best on paper. She's shown consistent progression. She's now facing state-bred competition for the first time in her career. The argument that you could make, and this is why I didn't single her, what is her best distance? Because she has shortened up. I don't like that at all. When a horse is progressing and she's shortening up in distance, I'm scared. I'll be honest, because you're going to have to take a short price. You see Luis Saez and you see Danny Gargan, who's still winning at 42%. Danny, whatever you're doing, continue to do it, because this is an incredible run that you're on. I just look at her talent, and I didn't like anyone else in this spot, to be honest with you. She has gone not this distance. She's gone a mile and a 16th in the past, but I don't know if that race I'm going to chalk it up to she just wasn't as good as the other runners in that field, or she doesn't want to go the distance. So that's why I kind of used the 4. I put her on top. The other one I talked about coming out of the same race, sorry, not the same race, excuse me, I'm thinking of something else, causing a hullabaloo, the 6. And I think she actually got better stretching out. So this is the complete opposite angle. I don't think she's as talented as Simply the Best, but she's stretching out, and she looked pretty solid first time on the turf. She was wide throughout. I think if she gets anything better than a 3-wide trip in a stalking position, she's going to do better. I know you went deep in this race, so kind of talk to me. Where I think you used the 4 and 6 in some capacity. I don't know where you ranked them. So kind of give me an idea of what you thought of those 2 and where else you were looking to complete your try box.
Yeah, so I did a 1, 4, 6, 9 trifecta box here, and I do think it is a pretty good race to do that in. Reason being, I did use the 4 and 6, not on top. Those were not my 2 top choices. They were 3rd and 4th actually for me. But I get where you're going with it. But I kind of think there's some sneaky ones here, Ricky. I'm a little worried about you going short here. I looked to the 9, and I really liked what I saw as kind of this horse could really move up. 2 races on the dirt, and they weren't horrible. The first one was horrible. The second one was not horrible. It was a 7 furlong dirt race at Parks, got second, beaten 3/4. A little bit of a layoff. Now we're moving the horse to the turf. Now we're getting Tyler Gaffalione aboard. We've got a little bit of speed on the dirt, so if we can show it on the turf, and now we're drawn outside of all the speed. So if the 4 is doing something crazy, we can sit just off. If it's kind of getting slow, we can get right there and press that 4 up against the rail. I'm very interested in the 9 here. That's who I put on top. I don't know. I just think there's enough positive factors to think this horse is going to like the turf. And you look at how Weaver is doing at Gulfstream and overall lately, very, very good. He's doing very well. And when him and Gaffalione team up, it's also very positive as well. So I thought the 9 was a very interesting horse in here. How about the 1? Big Band Lizzie Ann. I love that name. Okay. Some trainer that never runs here, Granite's, gets Irad Ortiz Jr. on a first-time starter. I think that probably tells me that this horse is ready to roll right out of the gate. So I think this is a very interesting horse because Irad jumps aboard. I don't think he's going to waste his time for a barn that he probably doesn't even know who this trainer is, to be honest with you. And he's like, oh, yeah, I'll just jump on and ride that horse in the 10th race. What the hell? No, I don't really think that's how it went. I think there's probably a little bit of buzz around this horse for Irad to get on. I'll be very interested to see how this horse is bet. I think that will really tell you a lot. I would have to think that the word's out and this horse isn't going to be 6-1. So those were actually the 2 horses I put on top. The 4 and the 6 are the logical ones. I don't need to touch on them anymore. But I kind of tried to get creative, and I went with the 9 and the 1 also in it. So a 1, 4, 6, 9 trifecta box. 1 and the 9. Did you look at them at all, Ricky?
Yeah. So I'll be honest. I hate the 9. I don't put anything into that race at Parks, and I'll be honest, I have a big bias against Parks races. From not bias in terms of the racetrack itself. I just don't put a lot. It's similar to when Woodbine turf races come to Gulfstream. I just don't think they come back strong. We saw it on Pegasus Day. Again, no shot at Josie Carroll, but none of those runners came back strong at all. And I think Josie Carroll coming into Pegasus Day was like 0 for 7 with no in the money finishes. It's just the way they just don't come back strong. And I don't think these Parks races are going to come back strong either. I am terrified of the 1. Absolutely terrified. And I had to do some research on Anthony Granites, I'll be honest, because I never heard of him before. But these are just some numbers to throw out at you. He wanted 17% on 283 starters in the last year, 21% with 14 first-time starters last year. The interesting thing is he has nothing at Gulfstream to show for and nothing with Irad Ortiz to show for. So I hate this race, not because it's good, because I do think it's going to be a good race. I hate it because I had to go so deep in the last race. And this is I was really excited to talk about this because this might be a ticket structure thing in terms for me. Last race, I went 5 deep. If it comes back with let's say the 4 Hopeful Growth, well, I'm going to be kicking myself because I didn't include the 1. If I include the 1 here, I believe it comes back as it's a $45 ticket. It would probably be, I don't know, like a $62 ticket. I don't have the math on top of me. I could do it as I'm talking. I just think it's going to be a little bit too expensive. Yeah, it comes back as a $67.50 ticket. I'm not playing that big of a ticket today. Not only am I doing that because I think Hopeful Growth can still win, so then it's going to chalk out. I might even lose money if some of the favorites come in. So I don't think it's one of those sequences, A. B, the workout going 5 furlongs at Tampa Bay Downs was in a minute 2 and 1, so 102.2. Look, I don't like when people tell me it was a bullet work. Why don't we look at the times? Okay, because a minute 2 is not all that fast. It's not bad. It's just, it's whatever. I know it's a bullet work, but okay. I'm actually more impressed with the work 4 furlongs on January 20th. So I'm terrified of the 1. I'll be completely honest, absolutely terrified. If the 9 wins, well, I never would have had her anyway. And I do like George Weaver. I think getting Tyler Gaffleone is better than Michael Sanchez. I don't know. I think the 1 is the one I'm afraid of, but the 6, Causing a Hullabaloo, is one of the horses I really, really liked in the spot, 9-2, and I did like the stretch out last time out, and I think the 4 is simply the best. She just might be the most talented, so we'll see, because she's going to go back to state-bred competition. Before we wrap up, is there anything else you want to touch on with this last race? We didn't talk about the 2, the 3, the 5, or the 8. Is there anything there?
Yeah, not really with those horses, but I will say if you haven't heard of Anthony Granite, he runs a lot of horses at Tampa Bay, and then he will go up to Indiana, Hawthorne, Arlington, places like that, mostly Indiana. And, you said the percentages. He does well wherever he goes. He just goes to a little bit of the smaller circuits. So it is interesting that the guy has trained horses at Tampa forever, and now he's taking a horse to Gulfstream, for the first time in a year. So to me, it says one of two things. It says he couldn't find a race at Tampa for the horse, or it says that this horse is loaded and he thinks this horse is pretty good. One of the two, right? So we'll see what happens. But I definitely think if he brings the horse over and just name a random jock gets aboard, I don't want to insult anybody, but just a random jockey's aboard, I don't give it a second look, really. But the fact that Irad is aboard is interesting. I think the horse will run pretty well. So no, that's all I got, though. I think we've covered him pretty well in this one.
Yeah, no, this was a really, really good episode. I'm going to try to come up with a few more fill in the blank topics. I should have maybe saved 1 or 2. Without further ado, let's wrap up here. I'll start with my sequence starting in race 7. I went with 2, 4, 8, 4, 8, 9, 2, 4, 6, 7, 8 with the 4, 6. The race I just wanted to touch on again, I should say the most exciting race I'm looking forward to. Yes, the one with 5 horses, because I don't know what's going to happen. But the other one is race 8 with our Adios Jersey, because you were really, really high on her. I am as well. I don't know if it's going to heat up. So we're going to find out. If it doesn't, I think our Adios Jersey can go gate to wire. You might see 6-5, but she might be worth it. If it does heat up, you might see a closer, and that's where I kind of put Battle Cry. How did you see the last 4 races, and anything else you want to add here?
Yeah, I think this is a tricky card when you start off with the 7th race. I did a $5 to win on the 5, just a wide open race. I hated all the short prices, and I thought, well, we'll try to just kick it off with a long shot winner. 5 hopefully is a little bit forwardly placed and can kind of stay. Race 8, you talked about it, $20 to win on the 9 for me. Strongest opinion. Let's hope we get a decent enough price and not below even money. Race number 9, really just tried to pound a $5 exacta box with the 4 and the 8. I think the 4 is the classiest horse in the race, and I think the 8 is the one that could improve. And then in race 10, just a 50-cent trifecta box, 1, 4, 6, and 9. Interesting maiden race. A couple of curious horses there. So total of $47 for me to kick off the week. And man, we got a lot to look forward to. So let's hope we kick it off with a couple winners here.
Yeah, no, it'll be nice to do that. It was a great January for me in terms of Pegasus Day was great. It's always nice to have one of your best days on the biggest day. Mm-hmm. Not even for everyone to see, but when it's nice to do the best when the horses are the best, because sometimes when you do well and the horses are no good, sometimes you feel lucky. I can't wait. I was thinking about this the other day. I can't wait until we do another consensus guide. The reason for that is because sitting in first is nice, but I want to get better. I want to extend my lead, as they say. So hopefully we have another one soon. Do you know when the next one is going to be for all of us to get in?
Fountain of Youth Day, I think, will be it, but don't quote me on that. But I think Fountain of Youth Day, we will have one where we have a Risen Star guide, but we won't do consensus picks. But the Fountain of Youth, we'll definitely, I would say they'll be on there.
So you heard it here first. It is definitely the Fountain of Youth. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Hopefully we can get in on that. Obviously, yeah, there are 2 guides. Some guides are bigger. I shouldn't say none are better, because the content and quality in there is always top notch, 100%. full effort, so always worth the purchase. But sometimes the bigger ones, like the Fountain of Youth, for example, will have our picks at the end. Sometimes I get to do an article, sometimes I don't, whatever the case the setup is. Mm-hmm. The Risen Star will probably just be Aaron, for example, which is fine. It is what it is. We will try to get the Fountain of Youth together for everyone. That would be nice if we could all be in on that. Yep. Without further ado, as we hit the hour mark, obviously, everyone, please stay safe, stay healthy. I shouldn't say fully recovered from COVID, but close to it, 99%. Well, let's make today a winning day as we kick off the week here. Mike Somich will be on tomorrow. I told him he can come on as long as he doesn't wear a St. Louis Blues hat. We'll see if he listens to me. Probably not. If he does, I won't kick him off, but I'll have to address it. Without further ado, everyone, good luck today. Snow has finally stopped here in New York, so I'm excited about that. It's a beautiful day down at Gulfstream, so enjoy, stay safe. Let's make today a winning one, like we said earlier, and we will see you tomorrow bright and early at 11 a.m. here on the East Coast.